Okay, so we come back to chapter 3, Yoga of Action. And we could say Karma Yoga, the yoga of selfless action. And in that, we're just moving from sacrifice and the concept of sacrifice. So let's start with the Gita Dhyanam. There should be, in every one of these in the front, a copy of Gita Dhyanam. If not, I'm not sure. If not, put up your hand and we have one here somewhere. Okay. This is traditionally, in all Bhagavad Gita study, traditionally chanted in Sanskrit. So here's a lovely English translation given to us by Swami Satchidananda that we use so that we can connect with the meaning of what's being shared. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters of the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness on us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate Mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows, the milker is the cowherd boy Krishna, Arjuna is the calf, people of purified intellect are the drinkers, the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent, and the crippled cross mountains. So, how does one meditate upon the Gita? What's being discussed here in this Gita Dhyana? How does one meditate upon anything? How do you meditate upon anything? What does it mean?
To focus.
To focus what? Very good. To focus
what? Be one pointed on what it is I want to achieve.
Mind, being. So awareness, mind, all of this, yes. Oh, very good. So to meditate upon an object, some matter, like the teaching Bhagavad Gita, what does that mean?
Like contemplate how it is in my life. Does it not, like, how does it relate?
That's contemplation, yes, that's part of it. Absolutely. What else?
While we're reading, singular focus on what we're doing and talking about instead of wandering.
Yeah. Oh, very good. So meditation in this sense, really always meditation means this. I'm not sure. And meditation in this sense, so the three terms in terms of how does one learn the truth? How does one learn the truth? Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. We don't use a lot of Sanskrit, so he's not a Sanskrit scholar. But there's some key words that if we take some time to understand the significance, the meaning, the words in Sanskrit are always the vibrational element is always there. So the more we're able to pick up some of the meaningful Sanskrit words, the better for us. When we translate them, they lose a little. In other words, a little or a lot. But still, none of us having been trained in Sanskrit, we have to deal with the translations. So Shravana, to listen. To listen is profound. Mostly we find that we say that we're listening, but we're only hearing ourselves. So to actually listen is profound. It requires us to come out of ourselves, out of our own ideas, out of our notions, out of our belief system, out of all of this in order to actually listen. So listening is art and science both. And it starts So meditation starts with listening. So it's a tuning, right? It's a tuning. It's a tuning. If we're to meditate upon Bhagavad Gita, then we're to tune ourselves, our being, all of the senses, the mind, all of this in order to listen to what it is that Lord Krishna is saying first. And understand it. So first level, we have to understand the words that are being shared. Right? Secondly, we have to understand the philosophy that's being shared. Third, that's when we get to manana, contemplate, really consider it, to grasp, using this conscious faculty, what's being shared, and to see it in action, to have the ability to see it being acted out. That's manana, that's contemplation. And then nididhyasana is to act it out yourself. Right? To act it out yourself. So in these three, in an iterative process, it's how we learn the truth. All of the enlightened ones have learned in the same way. It's a conscious mental activity. So we focus conscious mind, but through the faculty of conscious mind, we focus the entirety of this being. So we bring our awareness to it, we bring our conscious faculty to it. We listen so carefully that we couldn't hear anything else but the teaching, right? If we're hearing something else, then it wants to be cleared away. So the learning is not a process of believing. It's not a process of memorization. Right? It's really using the conscious faculty, leading the way in order to learn the truth ourselves. No one else can learn it for us. So we have to do it. We have to do it. Lord Krishna guides us. That's this meditation upon the Gita. It's bringing the entirety of our being to the matter at hand. Lord Krishna is teaching us the highest truths and how to be one with these highest truths. There's nothing more important that he could be teaching us. He's teaching us the secret of happiness, the secret of fullness, the secret of fulfillment. In one way, we could say it's not a secret because it's all over YouTube. So we could say it's out there, but it's a secret because we don't know it. Right? So it's remained hidden from us, even though it's hidden in plain view. So first is to listen. And this really applies to us because there's a faculty in us that says, I know. Isn't there? Mm-hmm. We'll talk about this a little bit today as well with a couple of the shlokas. There's a faculty in us that says, I know. You listen to me, it says. I'll tell you what to do. And that's that ego sense. We've been dealing with Katha Upanishad. And Katha Upanishad most recently, and we'll pick it up again today, most recently Om, and then moving on from that to contemplation of the truth. Katha Upanishad started with the priest offering a puja, offering a sacrifice, yes. But not in the proper spirit. Who was it that gave him the guidance to how he was to do it? His mind, his ego sense. There's in the discussion we were having the most recent time. Maya, when we talk about Maya, we hear that the existence of Maya is inferred because of the way this mind works. So there's this faculty within us that seems to want anything but to be present to the truth. Does that make sense? That seems to want to be apart from it, away from it. It seems to want that. Does that make sense? It says when the bell rings early, no, I'm going to sleep in. It's what says, no, I know already. And so this meditation on the Gita really is a great work to be able, in spite of that faculty, to listen. Right? To actually hear what's being said. And then to contemplate it, to consider it, to reflect upon it, to roll it around, to visualize it. It's so hard. And then to actually live it. To try it out, try it on for size. And that's this meditation. This is really what's meant when we talk about meditation in the Gita. And only then do we learn. Otherwise we stay in the rut. So it really takes something to bring us to the place where we actually want to learn. Right? It really takes something. Okay. So we'll pick up and we'll just read these, speaking of this action. 15. And we had covered when I was with you last here, and of course we've got our family Sangha joining us online as well. We had covered sacrifice, the concept of sacrifice, and the meaning of that word sacrifice, and meaning in action. Sacrifice meaning sacrifice, or to make sacred. What's being shared with us is that this sacrifice, this selfless service to do for the benefit of the whole, or to do as an offering to Krishna or to the highest, that it's actually a transformational process, that it transforms the mundane to the divine. It's that alchemical shift. Changing lead to gold. That's what sacrifice really is intending. So after teaching us about this, Lord Krishna says, know that action comes from creative intelligence, which is of the imperishable, the eternal. The all-pervading Brahma, thus, is forever centered in self-sacrifice. This entire creation is a work in self-sacrifice. Everyone here, the one exception is the human, because we have this gift of free will, this grace. Because of this, we go through this process of trying it out. But the sun, the stars, the cats, the dogs, the grass, the trees, they don't have this. So if we look at everything but the human, we see that everything here is in a sacrificial capacity. Everything is giving of itself. Everything is offering itself, right? The sun offers its warmth freely. It doesn't charge a tax in order to have, in other words, for it, there's no marketplace. It just does what it's to do. And if you say there's not intelligence underlying the sun, that would be a mistake. Science understands the intelligence underlying the sun. They don't have an understanding where it comes from. But of course, there's great intelligence underlying every single function in the world. Great intelligence. Everything, everyone here is involved in thought. And the entire flow of it is a sacrifice. The entire flow of the universe is a sacrifice. The entire flow of the universe is an offering. Everything is offered freely. Huh? Coffee? You want coffee? The universe offers it freely. Humans, when they get involved in the process, they'll charge money. But Mother created the coffee trees. Yes? Did she want something for that?
Yeah.
She created the coffee trees. She brought the rain.
Yes.
She provides the fertilizer. Oh.
Everything works in a symbiotic relationship, except for us humans. We kind of like want to discriminate.
We are suffering from confusion. We're suffering from delusion. That's the issue. For
Ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want to make us up to be bad guys, but
Right.
but we act badly because we don't know.
Oh.
Because we don't know. So anyone here on earth, Arjuna, who does not align with the revolving wheel, and the revolving wheel that we see all through the universe is from starting with sacrifice and then acting from that place of offering of oneself, like the grass offers itself, like the tree offers itself, like the zucchini offers itself, like the coffee bean offers itself. Starting there, acting, offering to God, and then sacrifice. So this wheel continues like this. This entire universe just continues in this way. The offering continues. And the offering, you remember we had the conversation that even the rain, even the water, the rain, comes from this wheel.
Oh, yeah.
That, and it's very interesting for this time, this teaching for this time. We had a very specific shloka that we spent a little bit of time with about, in fact, rain requires sacrificial action to come. So it helps us understand the droughts that we deal with, the terrible storms and all of this, right? And something's breaking down here when it comes back to the human and the human's participation in the wheel. So anyone here on earth who doesn't align with it, but instead chooses to waste his or her life delighting only in the senses, lives in vain. So they miss it. Whoever delights in the self, capital S self, Atman, finds satisfaction in the self and is centered in the self, surely has no further duties. Then at last, there is nothing to get by doing something, nothing to lose by doing nothing, and no dependencies on anyone for anything. And we had discussed that in our last session together, that for the one who functions in this spirit, and it makes even the breath, every action and offering, every action and sacrifice, finally, this great discovery, which is whatever is needed is provided without having to long for it, without desiring it, without having to get it as the reward. So action becomes simply a flow, acting for the sake of action, acting because it is to be done, not to get something back. So, and that process is really the end of the person, the end of the identification with the person, and this whole and complete transformation back into the divine for the human birth. So, therefore, always do your duty without attachment, what Krishna says. Therefore, always do your duty without attachment. Don't be attached to the fruit, do it because it's to be done. Without desiring results. If you do things without desiring results for yourself, you will experience the highest state. You will experience the highest state, this yoga. King Janaka and many others reached perfection through karma yoga, the path of selfless action. In order to guide others, you too should follow this path of action. Whatever a great person does is followed by others who set their standard by his or her example. Arjuna, there's nothing in the three worlds being earth, astral, and celestial planes that I ought to do, nor anything for me to achieve that I have not already achieved, yet I continue doing things. So You understand? Lord Krishna here is saying, what do I need to do for myself? What do I need? What do you suppose Krishna needs?
Nothing. Just to help others.
Not even that.
Not even that.
There's no other.
Maybe he's bored now. Needs something to do.
You see, it's this persistence of the self-centered nature. It's quite something, isn't it?
Always feeling you have to strive.
You see, it even took a while to see that it existed, didn't it? Because at some point it seems within this self-centered nature, it seems as if that's all there is. Everyone who does anything does it because they love to do it. When I was walking pilgrimage, and it's a common assumption, of course, it's because of the way this mind works. Everybody would assume that I like to walk. Because why would you do something that you didn't want to do?
Correct.
You see how ingrained that is in the human mind. But here Lord Krishna is saying, I don't need to do anything, do I? Why would I want to do anything?
Yeah, it's craving.
Yeah. Would I have a preference doing this instead of that?
Yes.
Right? I prefer this. So therefore I'll put most of my attention into this. Whatever the class is. There's a concept in some of the traditions about God's favorite people, God's preferred people. So I'll put most of my attention into the Jews. Everybody else. So what is it that God has to do? And God is functioning through everything here. The atoms, they don't function independently. The sun, the planet's rotations, these are all action. And the actions are very specific, very intelligent, very specific, right? So this is Krishna acting. Krishna is saying, look, I'm acting.
But being inactive in the acting, because it's just doing what is necessary or what its function is. Something to that effect.
Oh,
Well, also maybe he's looking out for the children because at this horrible,
no children. There are no children.
well, like in the army itself, like what's that ruler's name that puts the kids into the army to fight and he abuses all the people in his kingdom. So maybe he's looking out for all the children and things.
A little commentary from Swami Venkatesananda on this. So there are 3 shlokas here that Swamiji speaks of. There's nothing in the 3 worlds, O Arjuna, that should be done by me, nor is there anything unattained that should be attained. So again, the concept, what do I need to do? Krishna says. You see, right? Nothing. I don't need anything. I don't want for anything. I'm not lacking anything. I'm not missing anything. Yes? And yet I engage myself in action. He's inspiring us, to act, but without expectation. And it's such a foreign concept to us that he's taking a lot of time with us on it. Right? The entirety of the world is a marketplace. Everything here is done for something else. To get something. That's what we see in the world, right?
The great archer.
So now he's painting what is the way out of this worldliness. And the way out of the worldliness is this selfless sacrifice, is this turning it around, and he's extolling it and explaining it, right? Continues to do. So he's saying, as an example, look at me, because I don't need to do anything, and yet I'm always active? If we look at this universe, is not this universe always active? Isn't it always on the go? Right? It doesn't just, the grass doesn't say, okay, I'm tired, I'm going to stop growing stuff. This is for the birds.
This morning.
I'm just going to hang out today, but growing. The leaves. Okay, enough of this photosynthesis already. This is tiring. The earth. And again, there's intelligence underlying all of this. The earth, okay, I'm going to stop spinning today. My head is spinning. I'm dizzy. We have to stop this stuff. So this is all Krishna in action. It's all Lord in action.
Is this his duty? Is this Krishna's duty? Or is he beyond duty?
Well, you could say duty, and when Lord is speaking with us, then he'll say duty. He or she will say duty, right? Do your duty. Recognize your duty and do your duty. But to whom does Krishna have a duty to?
Krishna.
Then he doesn't have one.
Exactly.
Is it simply the nature of Krishna?
So doing for the sake of doing. Doing for the sake of doing. In other words, for nothing. For nothing. No reward, no nothing. For, should I not engage myself in action, unwearied, men would in every way follow my path, O Arjuna. Now he does say there's something. There's something. And this we'll read a little bit and discuss today. It's a very interesting factor in these minds that we all deal with. So he's recognizing that if he stopped doing, that would be an excuse for all of these humans who long for liberation not to do what they need to do.
Very tough.
So, and he says it. He says, for if I stop, then men would in every way follow my path, O Arjuna, and they would stop too. So even though there's no other, it's very interesting the way he answers. And then he says, these worlds would perish if I did not perform action, right? Everything would collapse. It's a constant action. It's a continuous action. Right? If the grass stopped to grow, if the photosynthesis shut down, if the plant stopped to spin, if the atoms stopped spinning, everything would perish. I would be the author of confusion of castes and destruction of these beings. So if I didn't act, then there would be no freedom. So here's a little commentary that Swamiji shares. He says, God, when he incarnates himself here in this world, also engages himself in unwearied action. We were with our group and Anjaneya was there. We had the Be Still and Know retreat in Akron, Canton over this past weekend. And on Sunday morning, we took Peace Pilgrim's teaching Steps Towards Inner Peace. And we talked a little bit about Peace Pilgrim, and there's an image of Peace Pilgrim that comes. Peace Pilgrim, when she would speak of the path and this transformation from lead to gold, the transformation from the worldly mindset and worldly life for the human to the divine life, from coming from being controlled by the desires to the transformation where one is serving the absolute wholly and completely, this transformation. And she had made this transformation. She speaks from there. And she talks about the prana, the energy, and health. And she says, I'm plugged in. I'm now connected to that divine energy, whatever needs to be done, the energy is there to do it. The energy is here. So I'm plugged in. This is like being plugged into an electric outlet. If I'm to do something, then the energy will be here in order to do it. So, and here the same concept also engages himself in unwearied action. So action without ever being tired. We deal with, when we're doing things for ourselves, we deal with always loss of prana, energy. I just don't have the ability to do it right now like that. But the one who's plugged in is like the ever-ready bunny. Whatever needs to be done, the energy is always there. Unwearied is a concept that's very foreign to us. Right? We're accustomed to being tired of this or tired of that. And just to help us to see the switch. The ego will, of course, will ask, like, why? Why? On spiritual path, am I not going to give up all of these pleasures? Why in the world do I want to do this? All of these questions will arise. But there are some concepts that are shared that are so hard to relate to from the worldly mindset, from the self-centered bonds that we found ourselves tied to. But weariness becomes a thing of the past. When the self-centered nature becomes a thing of the past. So Swamiji continues, that is as it should be. So in other words, engaging himself in unwearied action, that is as it should be. Saints and sages are seen to engage themselves in unwearied action for the welfare of mankind. The unselfish one is more active than the selfish one. The former service is spontaneous, enthusiastic and zealous, free from procrastination and postponement, which characterize the half-hearted service of the calculating one of lust and greed. The unselfish one has more time and energy to work because she has no worry about profit and loss. He says, we have glorious examples of saints before us, but we do not follow them. And he asks this question, and this is this factor that's very odd. Do we ever follow anyone's good example? Even in their lives, we try to pick out only defects. Even in their lives, the saints, we try to pick out only defects as excuses for our own indulgence. We discover human weakness in their personalities, and we turn our blind eye to the vital spiritual truths illustrated in their lives. He said, it is the worst tragedy. We are the real losers. So he's speaking of this aspect that's in us that is always looking for the excuse
to be lazy,
to justify torpor, laziness, darkness.
Yeah.
It's we see it in ashram. And this is not pointing at just one specific person, because I'm saying everyone experiences this within themselves. There's an aspect within you that's watching, looking for the excuse.
Yeah.
Right? Looking for and so many inspiring things can be happening around you, but then one person late for satsang, and the idea comes in the morning, I want to sleep in, and Swami might say something to me, but yesterday so-and-so wasn't there on time.
Yes. Just fine.
Look at it. It's a factor we need to be aware of. When we look at this life and we look at where we want to be, which is enlightened, because everything we want is already here, it's already inside us, it's already our own true nature. So the only thing preventing us from having it is the fact that we're still taking the veil to be the truth instead of the light. And so we recognize in the saints and the inspiring examples around us the way, we see what the way is. Right? Harry, we see what the way is. Yeah. And then there's this factor that instead of being inspired by these examples and inspired to do our best at whatever it is, because we've had the inspiration, we've had the teaching, we know it, when it turns 5 a.m. and the alarm goes off or the bell rings, it will say, no, I need a little more sleep. Isn't it something? And then it will go to the person who didn't get up or the huh? Does that make sense? Why is it that it's doing that instead of seeing the inspiring example? Swami Shivananda says we should get up at 4. So why isn't that factor looking at that and saying, Swami Shivananda does this? Why isn't it seeing the inspiring? Just to be aware, this is something that every one of us deal with. But also it means that our actions, and this is one of the most difficult things about Sangha, and this is why Swami's always on people in Sangha, is okay, let's say we give in this morning, then do we become the example for others that are dealing with this same factor in the mind, right? And this is what Krishna is sharing for himself. I can't stop. I have to continue. Because if I stop,
We'll all stop.
then we'll all stop.
Yes.
I find there's whenever there's an attachment, quickly the mind will come to stories about why not.
It will.
Like,
It will.
For the morning or something like that.
Yeah.
It'll be like, well, you're doing good in other areas and you're
All that
this,
stuff,
this, and
all that stuff.
And there's a very elaborate system of storytelling.
Yeah, and clearly it's delusive. If you look at it, clearly it's not beneficial. Right? It's not beneficial. Clearly it's not beneficial. So it's very interesting also how it is that we give into it so easily.
Impure intellect.
And then, of course, it's impurity. It's Maya.
Yes.
It's Maya. It's this delusive aspect
It's not
Right.
the truth.
that's working within in order to test us, in order to support this awakening. Yeah. But if we follow it, if we just follow it, then it leads us into deeper bondage. So Swamiji says it's the worst tragedy. We are the real losers when we follow it. The moment we realize the emptiness and the sorrowfulness of our own pleasure-seeking life, and it asserts in this way, it asserts to avoidance of pain and pursuit of pleasure. It just is constantly doing this. In every situation it's doing this. And then it looks to the examples that it can use around it in order to justify its action. You see it?
100%.
Oh, tough.
Could you speak on the difference between, and you probably have already touched on this, the difference between a human's avoidance of pleasure and pain and that of plants and animals? Because plants and animals are keyed into the natural flow, but they also do operate for the maximization of pleasure and avoidance of pain.
You say that. It seems like they operate as they're supposed to operate. I wouldn't necessarily. We could see it different ways. We could see nature providing for them a set of laws, a system that helps support their growth, their prospering. Although interestingly enough, when I would walk, I would see trees growing out of rocks, and that must be a very difficult life. Very hostile environment, and yet still life somehow is asserting there. This isn't, what's being shared with us isn't judgmental. It's not about saying we're bad. This is a teaching on freedom, and only in the human birth does one have the potential to realize one's own true nature and assert it and discover that freedom which is innate. The plant doesn't have it, the cat doesn't have it. But in the human birth, it's possible. And so what Lord Krishna is speaking to is not judgmental whatsoever. He's just saying this is the way out. You're going to have to assert the divine nature and let go of the lower nature. This is the way out. And then you can be free. Right? So both of those aspects are within this field. Both of them are within the field. It's a question of how do we see and what do we follow. Right? Our own thoughts, words, and actions, our own choices, can either bring us in the human birth into deeper states of bondage, or they can bring us to liberation. So it's just like that. It's completely non-judgmental. It doesn't have anything to do. Nobody's saying you're bad if you follow the lower nature. But what is being said is if we follow that lower nature, which is at very much at some level the nature of the plants and the nature of the animals, right? That if you follow it, you will find yourself to be stuck or trapped in this state of suffering. Okay. Here we need to close, so we'll just finish his commentary. He says, the moment we realize the emptiness and sorrowfulness of our own pleasure-seeking life, we shall desist from evil, and without seeming to and without effort, follow the example of the good. One should try to live for 100 years doing one's duty. That's Ishavasya Upanishad that he quotes. So, in other words, there is a switch that comes when we begin to see it. And then the interest comes to doing that which is selfless. That comes. The only reason Maya is this aspect of Maya is the delusive aspect. So it keeps turning us as if away from the light. Right? Oh.
So this is kind of.
But we have the choice to turn ourselves towards the light.
Free will.
Sorry?
Free will.
Free will. Purushartha. Okay. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, so this is like you were mentioning in the beginning, I don't remember the Sanskrit, listening.
Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana.
So I'm reflecting on how this manifests in my mind and when I follow then reflecting or trying to make a habit of bringing the Dharma and replacing the habits, because these are just habits, it seems like.
And for our sadhana, for us to be able to recognize this delusive aspect, to see it asserting. So when there's an idea that, well, such and such didn't do it,
yes.
Run away from that idea.
Yes.
Run very far away.
Yes.
Know that the tendency is there for it and stay away from it. And do you see why to stay away from it?
Because I get very angry.
Because you lose yourself and you lose your freedom. Oh, that's fine. You see it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So gift to a sadhaka in terms of the study is to recognize this. Because both of these aspects are inside, as it were. right? The aspect that's inspired by divine action, by highest teachings, by the virtues. There's an aspect that is inspired by it, isn't there? There's an aspect that appreciates the examples around us, the inspiring examples around us, isn't there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's also within us this aspect that is catching everything that everyone does as wrong and using it in order to denigrate the teachings that are being shared, to avoid one's duty, to avoid actions that will lift us out of the mire. Also this. So the development of discernment means the ability to recognize all of this within the field, within the mental field, within one's person, and to see those tendencies that arise that lead us to deeper bondage and to run away from them, to switch them up, to transform them. You see?
Yeah. It's so ingrained, the selfish nature. I almost look at everything I do before I try and do it and like
You
just
have to.
assume there's something there.
You have to.
Before I do it.
You have to. If you're to transform it, you really have to.
Something.
Okay, so let's close with the short final prayers in RT, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukmeva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukmeva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukmeva Bandhanan Mritor Mokshiyama Mritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. On below Satchidananda Shivananda Maharaj Ki. And salutations to all the saints and sages of all the traditions. I should have said, O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in thee forever and ever. Okay, let's rise for RT. Short RTs 2:12 probably.